to another edition of the Coach and Benway podcast. This is the Weekly Bile, our weekly show where we talk about the current events and all the crazy stuff that's happened. And we have had quite the momentous week. It's been a lot of fun. It's been just, it's been like a lol cow week practically. And Doctor, why didn't you fill us in and kick us off with the news of the week?
Well, you thought it would have been a quote-unquote slow news week when, we'll just have a Supreme Court nomination to deal with. We'll just have Jack Dorsey showing up on the steps of Congress to, say, I didn't do nothing.
Yeah,
I'm a didn't do. But little did they know that not only would the grandstanding of the left be on full display with the twin pinheads of the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, and you'd have the handmaid girls hanging up in the rafters, supposedly saying some goddamn message. I still don't understand what the whole fucking political message of the Handmaidens really think they're trying to accomplish.
It's pro-choice. It's pro-choice. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
It's that's why they dress like nuns. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
of course.
No, it's a TV show. It's a fucking TV show. Okay,
based on a very boring book. Sorry.
Yeah, I never could get into it. Yeah, it's supposed to be such
Atwood.
Yeah.
You ever listen to her speak? She sounds like a commercial for walking Vicodin. I wrote a book in which men who have power use it. That's how she speaks.
Yeah,
that's how she fucking talks. I'm going on a tangent because the real fun of this hearing, which set off this set off a lot of the stories that I was going to talk about today. Alex Jones shows up on the congressional steps.
Oh, yeah.
Literally charging head first like a single
bull in a china shop. Bull in a china shop.
A single man light brigade. Says, Jack, you're a fucking liar. It's like Marco Rubio, you're just full of shit. It's like, don't touch me, man. I'll hit you. Oh, you're threatening me, Marco.
Yeah, I'll take care of you myself. Yeah.
And then finally, when he sees Oliver Darcy, the guy who's been doing the whiny tattletale campaign against Alex Jones, like, why is he on your platform, Twitter? He shouldn't be there. Hey, Facebook, he shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Hey, YouTube, he shouldn't be there. That kind of kid in school.
Yeah,
so
the kind of guy that you used to beat the shit out of every other day. Yeah, because of a whiny
Alex
fuck.
Jones sees him in the hallway and he confronts him about it. He basically said, how do you like being, the little stooge for the mainstream media and all this other shit? And then, during the thing, you could tell he's uncomfortable. And then he tweets out, like, Alex Jones is yelling at me. Basically, I'm doing a Aziz Ansari impression because that's more what he is, although with less hair than Aziz has. And then, so that adds a nice extra. If this was a custard cream dessert treat of seeing all the bullshit on Congress, Alex Jones was the creme brulee. The nice acetylene torch on the top of the cream to give us a nice little extra sugary flavor.
Yeah, I know it's terrific. His performance was terrific, but the thing is, it proved his point because he goes and confronts this guy, this stooge from CNN. And he promptly gets banned from Twitter, permabanned, right? And so does InfoWars. And then today, as we're recording this, I read here that Apple has banned the InfoWars app from the App Store. Okay, I mean, it sort of like proved his point. There is a conspiracy to shut him up, right? Among all these tech companies, and what I find remarkable is Twitter saying that his behavior outside the platform influences whether he is on the platform or not, on the Twitter platform, which I find absurd. I think that is
because it's funny. It totally comes across like one of two things: either Oliver Darcy tattled, which is very likely, or Jack was like, this guy's yelling at me, and this is I feel offended.
No, they came across like a bunch of pussies. Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what's his name? Alex Jones. You can say whatever, but it's right there in Congress. There's tons of security. Nobody in his right mind is thinking that he's going to take a swing at anybody. He's just being loud and obnoxious. That's all that he was doing. Just being Alex, being loud and obnoxious. I mean, that's his thing. But
he also was being like a muckraker. It was just muckraking from the turn of the century. That's the thing that journalists are supposedly proud of being.
Yeah, exactly. And so he got showed, and he ain't coming back. I mean, you can tell they really hate his guts.
I double checked on my phone because I did download the InfoWars app a while ago when he first got his banning, and that's still there. So they haven't deleted it from my phone, which is sort of what I was waiting for. So I saw someone was posting as a response to some other tweet about this, is like they showed a screen cap from their phone. So it's like, can I resell my Apple iPhone as an InfoWars Alex Jones collectible piece?
yeah. That's pretty much true. Yeah. Look, I think that silencing Alex Jones just creates more problems for them than it's worth. I don't understand the mentality of it. It's stupid because it makes them look like fools. It makes them look like bullies, like people who really are willing to shut up people because they're annoying. Okay, and that's the whole point of free speech. See, what's that famous? Somebody famously said that Joseph Stalin and Goebbels and Hitler, they were all in favor of free speech that they liked. It was the free speech that they didn't like. That's the stuff that they were opposed to. Okay, that's the whole point of free speech. But okay, so Alex Jones, I love the thing with Marco Rubio and when catcalling after him. Go back to your bathhouse or whatever. Raising up those nasty.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. The bathhouse was the best because everybody knows the homoerotic implications of that.
Yeah, because there's a rumor that he's gay. Yeah, I thought it was so goddamn funny. And Marco Rubio came across as such a fake guy, just ignoring him and unwilling to engage. The guy's right there.
Well, my favorite is when he's like, when he's so wimpy, he's like, who's this guy? Who's this weirdo? It's like, well, you're on the committee that talked about banning me, so what, did you not pay attention? I love that Alex threw it right back in his fucking face. It's like either you're an idiot and you're not paying attention, or you're lying. Which one is it?
Yeah, exactly. I thought that Rubio, look, I have even less respect for the SOB now than before his encounter with Alex Jones, because Alex Jones, he's loud and obnoxious and a carnival barker and all the rest of it. Yeah, sure, but he is a type. He is a muckraking, carnival barker. We know the guy. This guy is not a stranger to us. I mean, to American culture. And, Marco Rubio, the way he handled him, the worst way possible, of like pretending he's not there. Acting and speaking to the media, acting and speaking to people who aren't there, i.e. the audience of the TV audience, and not engaging with somebody who is actually there. Alex Jones. He should have engaged. He would have just earned more points. But no, the thing is, see, these guys can't engage with Alex Jones because they know that he's fundamentally right. And they know that if they engage with him, they lose. Ratman, what's his name? The Darcy guy? Ratman, he didn't engage. Gay boy Rubio didn't engage. Yeah, because these guys know that if they engage, they lose. So they silence. Oh, and Jack Dorsey, too, in the steps of Capitol Hill. There's this great picture of Dorsey and Alex Jones. It was funny as hell. It was just...
And the thing everybody caught and was laughing hysterically at, the one random guy in the middle who was still wearing Google Glass.
Oh, yeah! Who was that guy?
They still fucking wear that. I have no idea who it was, but I'm sure they could do the Fibonacci spiral on that photo if they really wanted to. I really want to see how it would play out.
That was so weird. That was just so bizarre. Yeah. I mean, because I didn't recognize who that guy was, and then I'm like, why is he wearing a Google Glass? What year is this? Is this like 2010 or something like that? It was just bizarro. The other thing that I found really bizarro, or not really bizarro, is the Elon Musk meltdown. Oh man, we're seeing Tesla is circling the drain. I don't think that
it's funny because I saw it and it didn't come up across as a meltdown as much as I questioned whether or not Elon Musk was a droid. Yeah, because there's not. I mean, everybody saw the clip of basically he and Jim Rogan were smoking
Joe Rogan, Joe.
Joe Rogan, basically a tobacco and marijuana mixture.
Yeah, and he doesn't know how to smoke. It was so good.
Can I just say, before I get into it, as entertaining as Joe can be, I think he comes across as such a fucking school marm. easily offended prick when anybody ever questions, the smoking of marijuana around him. Like, he gets so his panties in a twist about it. And I'm like, look, I'm perfectly fine with, legalization of it or what have you, but stop fucking acting like, it's God's gift to earth. And we're like denying kids, their cancer treatment when we question whether or not marijuana is a good idea. But needless, sorry, I'm going off on a rant there, but I just had to get that out of my system. It wasn't even me, Elon Musk, smoking that I thought, oh, that's just kind of weird. I said, whatever. He smoked and he doesn't know how to do it. It was the way he spoke. He was like
robotic. Yeah.
He's just, I told people about the dangers of AI and nobody listened.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody listened.
I actually think that he was on something. Okay. Apart from the pot.
Well, I could easily, believe he was on like what's the calming medic? Is it Xanax that'll try to calm you down?
Yeah.
Which is the one that calms nerves? One of those. Because I got to tell you, when I was in college, I remember there were always girls in my co-ed dorm who was always like, oh, I need to take a Xanax just to deal with anything that was slightly, aggravating or nerve-wracking. It's like, it was pathetic, people, but I could believe he was on something like that.
No, he was definitely off. Okay, somebody was tweeting that he sounded like an alien, but like the friendly alien, as opposed to Zuckerberg comes across as the belligerent alien that wants to take over everybody and use everybody as cattle. Use people as cattle. Soylent Green kind of thing. But Elon Musk, well, he's having a horrible week. Okay, his head of HR resigned, and his chief accounting officer didn't last a fucking month. And the guy left, right? And he gave the most wishy-washy of excuses. Basically, he said, there's too much scrutiny, and I don't see a future for myself here, even though I agree with the management and I think that Tesla is terrific, but I'm leaving. It was just bizarro, Your experience, I mean, you're much more into corporatees and know how to read between the lines with such statements. How did you read that statement? What do you think why did he leave?
I honestly don't know. It could be so many different things. And the other thing that you would probably won't like this response, it could very well be he's telling the truth. It could very well be like, with all of the pressure on the company that, he just, for whatever reason, just wasn't feeling comfortable enough to do it. I don't know at the end of the day. I mean, Tesla doesn't seem like it's in a good shape, but I think we've already gave our reasons why that's the case.
Yeah.
To me, I thought it was just funny that of all the things that they wanted to use to question Musk's ability, it's the fact that he didn't know how to smoke a joint. Wouldn't you worry more if he like just took the blunt, sucked it dry, and then really just started acting like a loose hacky sack playing bastard? I think you'd feel a little bit more comfortable that he didn't know how to fucking smoke.
Well, it shattered the illusion of a lot of people who are his cheerleaders. They all thought that he was like the cool guy, and he's not. He's a faux cool. He's never been truly cool. He's one of those dweeby guys, annoying guys. As an adult, he's found his niche, but he's still a dweeby guy.
Well, that reminds me. This was another theme of this week. I want to call it the theme of the bad actors week. So if you kind of like go back, if we just kind of rewind the tape a little bit back to the Senate hearings, along similar lines of how like Elon's performance came across as weird. Another performance that came across as weird, but also like just like such a fucking bad actor, was the whole Cory Booker scene.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Like, Spartacus. I am Spartacus.
He said, so to context, they're doing their talking to Brett Kavanaugh. The Democrats are doing grandstanding like Brett Kavanaugh is going to basically bring the stormtroopers in and kill them one by one. And my response is, well, if that's the case, let's nominate him right now. Get the job over with. So Cory Booker's like, I have, we had in our emails, private emails about what you really say about these things. And I know I'm going to break the rules, but bring it on, because this is just stuff the American people need to know. And everybody around him, and even the news commentators, say like, Cory, we know you're just trying to run for president. Don't act like a fucking doofus on this thing. If you keep acting like a doofus, we'll treat you like one. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean, even Anderson Cooper wasn't buying his bullshit.
No, and well, it turned out, okay, for those of you who don't actually know, okay, so Cory Booker, said that he was going to reveal confidential emails that he had read because he's on the committee. emails written by Kavanaugh, and he was going to reveal them. And even though he'd break the rules and potentially could be kicked out of the Senate, it was his moral responsibility to reveal these emails, right? And well, several things happened after this moment of grandeur. See, number one, it turned out that the committee's counsel had approved the release of the emails because Cory Booker's office had called him up, and the guy in charge said, well, it's a matter of course that if a senator wants to reveal some information, and it's not national security, it's not potentially damaging information to the national security, they just approve those documents for release, and that's that, and the senator releases them. And that was the procedure that Cory Booker's office had done. So he wasn't running any risk of anything. And then the emails themselves were so goddamn bland because they're basically Kavanaugh saying it was right after 9/11, and he was working for George W. Bush, I think in the White House counsel's office, and they were arguing the issue of racial profiling. And he was saying that it made him, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically made him queasy the notion of any kind of racial profiling, and that it should be race neutral, and that any kind of short-term security measure that was not race neutral had to quickly go to being race neutral because of the practicality of not having enough people to implement the security measures, and that for a period of time it would be necessary to have them use racial profiling in order to husband the resources in order to be more effective as a security force. And he was very, leery of that. He looked good. I mean, he looked good. He looked like a guy who didn't want to be racially profiling anybody, who wanted, the security apparatus to be, gender and race neutral, which is a laudable thing, right? So how can you say that it was a bad thing? And so Cory Booker looked like a fucking idiot, but it was all, the Kamala Harris, Cory Booker thing. But there was
she was another cunt.
But she had a more interesting exchange with Kavanaugh about some meeting or something like that. I forget the details.
Because he was meeting with people in the law firm who was representing Trump, and she wanted to know if he had a conversation about the Mueller investigation. And he said to her, like, well, who exactly did you have in mind? He said, you claim to have this knowledge, of the secret knowledge of my meeting. Who are you referring to? And she's like, who I know, it's not the point of the question. It's whether or not you had the meeting. It's a yes or no question. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then, the second day she asks again, he says, okay, I'll give you the definitive answer. It's a no. And she says, well, you could have given me that answer yesterday. And he was ready. You see it in the transcripts. He was ready to say, well, yes, he was about to say, well, yesterday you were asking a stupid fuck grandstanding question, so I didn't give you the shitty answer you wanted. But he stopped himself before he did that. I wanted him to go after them. Because here's the thing. We all know how these shitheads are going to vote. I feel like this is a fucking parlor trick. And if, you remember when the hearing started with a fucking joke as well, like half the Democrats were like, excuse me, point of order. I think we should not have this meeting until after all of that kind of whiny bullshit. So if the Republicans were smart, like me, they would have said, okay, you want to play the grandstanding game? Okay, all Republicans who have the controlling votes of this House, let's say we've heard, we can just get up before Kavanaugh said a fucking thing and say, we've heard enough to have the nomination. We think that there's enough info to say, yes, let's move them on to a Senate vote. Aye, and they all vote in unison and say, okay, ayes have it, we're done. Yeah. It's like, okay, Democrats, you want to play the fucking game? We'll play the fucking game twice as hard and win. You want to do that?
Yeah,
because you've already set up the rules to make this happen.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell was right. He said, don't do this. He said it, when was it, 4 or 5 years ago? And lucky him, he's around to watch them eat crow. But yeah, it was stupid. It was stupid. The whole thing was just dumb. And the cherry on the sundae was to discover that what's her name? Just crossing your arms in the wrong way means that you're a white supremacist. It's good to know that. I mean.
Oh, I gotta, before we move on from it, I gotta also tell you that wonderful someone wrote this little skit of how they imagine Cory Booker's acting at a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Hang on, get this. I love this skit. So here's the exchange. Cory Booker says, and the McDonald's, I am getting refills without paying for it. Cashier responds, sir, refills are free. Cory Booker, try and stop me. Here I go. Cashier, sir, refills are free. Cory, Got a refill and you can't bully me. Cashier, sir, refills are free. Cory Booker, I am Spartacus.
Yeah, no, he's just such a loser. He's just such a fucking. Well, yeah, he's going to be one of the nominees, or one of the contenders for the nomination for the Democratic nomination. But I'm telling you, Kamala Harris, she's going to be the one. She's going to be the next Democratic Party nominee for president of the United States. I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. What I loved was what was her name? Xena Bosch. What was her? What was the name? Woman's name?
Oh, you mean his Kavanaugh's aide?
Yeah, that she's a secret.
Yeah, I think that's the right name. Yeah,
Xena Bosch. Yeah. So, okay, for those two of you who have not heard, what happened was that Xena Bosch was a aide to Brett Kavanaugh, and apparently they have like they are not just she is not just an aide to him. She is also like a family friend to him and his wife. I mean, they've known each other since forever. Xena Bosch's husband is some judge in Texas or something like that, and you know they go way back. You know, as people in these places do, because they know each other over the years, and they probably went to similar schools and all the rest of it. So she gets a text message, right? She checks her phone during the hearing, and Brett Kavanaugh is droning on and on about whatever. And then she puts away her phone and crosses her arms. And the way she holds her fingers, a bunch of morons started saying that that's like the white power symbol, because she made like an okay gesture.
Yeah, she made the okay gesture. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have like, well, you give the punchline, because I just thought it was.
Oh, the best part about it is, okay, so there's a whole day where you have like Asian doctors, in other words, people who never really had any effect of being an unprivileged minority, say, this is a terrible precedent. They're clearly flashing white power signs. And everybody says, you do know she's a Jewish Mexican, you fucking, casual. Anyway, so she must have got wind of this. And the cherry on top is that she could very well have known our little neck of the woods, because not only did she make the okay sign again with the very smug face on her mug when she did that, she then did the Pepe,
smug Pepe,
holding your chin between your two fingers and stroking it meme. It was so fucking amazing.
It was beautiful. It was so fucking. I think she's fluent in 4chan, as some imbecile said, because I retweeted some moron, some MSM dickhead, saying that he was fluent in 4chan, that he knew that she was. Yeah, I think that she is fluent in 4chan, and I think that that she did it. I mean, no, let me phrase it. I know that she did it on purpose. I know that she did just to troll the shit out of people. I thought it was funny as fuck. I mean, good on her. A little bit of resistance to this hysteria. Yeah, because look, bottom line, how did Kavanaugh strike you? Because he struck me as somebody who's on the ball, knows what the fuck he's talking about. He was very facile insofar as his discussions of the law and precedent. He never allowed himself to get trapped. I do not see him not getting this nomination unless, pictures emerge of him like, with the dead hooker and a mountain of cocaine, But
but that would just get the votes in quicker, because then they'd realize, oh, he actually is a guy like me. I'm kidding. No, but he'll be fine, as per usual with these things. The Democrats will keep doing their grandstanding, and the more they can look like lunatics, the better it is. Because speaking of the theme of bad actors, especially one of the worst things you could do as an actor is have bad timing, show up on the stage too late, or like past your prime or whatnot. And that, of course, leads me to Obama coming out of the woodwork to these days to have a speech more or less, criticizing the president. Any good thing that's happening is, that's based on stuff I was doing. It's all me. Or alternatively saying, it's shameful that the president just can't say that Nazis are bad people, even though he apparently has said it many times. And someone brought up there was a great Twitter exchange where a gentleman, I've forgotten his name, responded to someone, was saying, like, praising the president. He says, oh yeah, good one. Yeah. Calling Nazi, sympathizers bad people. Well, Trump already did that. Now, how about you take a chance and try to use the phrase radical Islamic terrorism? And someone responded to him and says, well, you do know he had Obama shot, or he shot Obama, or not, Osama, right? And the guy's response is, do you even know who you're talking to? here's the punchline: the guy who wrote that tweet is the man who put the fucking kill shot into Osama bin Laden.
Oh, that's priceless. That's just that is just goddamn funny. Oh man, that was okay. You can't make this shit up. Okay, I swear to God. So we are living in the best timeline. We are living in the most ironic of timelines. But yeah, okay. So Obama shows up. I don't quite know what he's aiming for because traditionally U.S. presidents they fucking go away from the political scene. They show up for library openings and shit like that, but they don't campaign. They don't campaign for midterms. Okay, basically it means that the Democratic Party has no leadership, and that the one who was supposed to be the leader, Hillary, is so damaged beyond repair. I don't think even Democrats buy her bullshit. So yeah, I guess that basically that makes Obama the de facto Democratic Party leader, but that shouldn't be the case.
Well, I half believe he's doing a pre-publicity tour for his new Netflix show, which is supposedly coming out sometime soon.
What kind of show is he going to have? Do you have any idea?
God, I don't know. Can you just imagine if he was the replacement for Michelle Wolf? It's like Michelle Wolf season 2. She now has a dick.
Yes, no,
but she may have a dick, but she may also still be chasing cock or whatever.
Who knows? Yeah,
that may be the case. I'd have no idea. It's funny because someone else brought up a good point. It's like when he showed up to give that fucking speech, he mentioned him himself in over 100 times in a 60-minute speech.
What?
You know what I mean? Yeah, apparently when Obama's 60-minute speech, he's talking, he mentioned either himself or things he did over 100 times. That's right. So it's still all about me, blah, 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 blah. And he's still a mediocre man, very mediocre man.
Yes, he is. He is an extremely mediocre man. He's a man who knew how to position himself very well, but he himself did not have any natural qualities or even acquired qualities that would make him stand out in any way whatsoever. He was just a well-positioned guy. I have the complete and utter disrespect for the man. And so, randomly sticking in there, Burt Reynolds died. That was sad.
I was actually going to go there because in the theme of bad actors, just to underline the point, we actually lost an interesting one.
Yeah.
Burt, and it's funny how I'm going to say something that sounds weird because superficially and logically it shouldn't be this way. It feels like dying at 82 almost feels a bit young these days.
Yeah, it does. Because Clint Eastwood is 85 at this point, I think, something like that.
Yeah, or maybe even older, but somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for him to die, he's 88. Holy shit, he's 88 years old and spry as a motherfucker, right? I mean, he's got a few more movies in him, and Woody Allen is up there too. It seems so, but come on, let's face facts. Burt Reynolds, he lived a harder life. This is interesting.
Well, he looked like shit.
Woody Allen and Burt Reynolds are the same age. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Burt
looked like shit near the end, and it more so. Like Woody Allen can look like shit, but it doesn't matter because it's not like Woody Allen always framed himself as a youthful bastion of sexual charisma, even though if he did it as a joke. Where Burt Reynolds, it was legitimate. I mean, the guy always portrayed himself as the viro-masculine kind of guy. And so when you see him in those last few years, I'd say at least the past 6 years, he's really frail, gaunt, to the point where, his eyes seem too big because the skin around it is shrinking. It was uncomfortable.
What happened, the bad plastic surgery, or actually good plastic surgery combined with natural aging, gives that weird look to the eyes. That looks just creepy as fuck. Yeah, and that's why never do plastic surgery. Or if you're going to do plastic surgery, do it everywhere but the eyes. Okay, always the jowls, that kind of stuff. Like Tom Cruise does it. Tom Cruise has had a lot of plastic surgery over the years, but it's always away from the eyes. There's only one time that he actually did do his eyes because he has those little flaps falling over his eyes. And that happens with aging. That some people have their lids fall diagonally over their eyes and it impedes their peripheral vision. And a lot of people get that surgery, especially pilots, because it actually affects their ability to fly planes. And And yeah, Tom Cruise did that, but he spoke about it. But his eyes, other than that surgery, which is really not really cosmetic, but kind of like a necessary surgery. Yeah, he never do it. Never ever do it because you always wind up looking like Burt Reynolds, poor guy. But his career was kind of he was the highest grossing actor for a 4 year stretch in the late 70s, early 80s. He did what? Deliverance? Wasn't he? No, he wasn't.
Deliverance was early 70s, but yeah, it was Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah,
It was God, the other things that I can't remember. But he did, a lot of like. Wait, I think he did like a racing film. I think everybody did a racing
Cannonball
film with
Run.
those two.
Yeah,
Cannonball
yeah,
Run,
which is basically the same
and,
movie. Yeah.
and then that football. What's that football film that he did?
Um, yeah, his film career was not really distinguished except for
There's like 3 or 4 movies he did that were fucking great. Deliverance obviously being one. Semi Tough was
Semi-Tough.
the
Semi-Tough.
was that was
I forget which one was Hooper.
Hooper. I think it is. I think it's it's with Adam West amongst other people. Sally Field, Brian Keith, Robert Klein, the greatest stuntman. Oh, he's a stuntman and coordinator on action films.
Okay, and he did well. Smoking the Bandit 2 and Cannonball Run and The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Those films were like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. They are basically aimed for Southern audiences, Southern hillbilly, less educated white audiences. That was the audience for Burt Reynolds, working class, white working class filmgoers, and he was very successful. And but artistically, there was Deliverance and there was
Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights. That was a fantastic role, and he was perfect in it. I mean, he was really, perfect casting. I think they were going to go with Warren Beatty for that role, but I think that Burt Reynolds.
Ironically enough, Warren Beatty would have been too sleazy a casting choice.
Yeah,
because he would have really, a guy like like Warren Beatty, if he would have done it, you would have taken one look at this guy and said, you would never want to be in a car with him. Whereas Burt Reynolds is fucking Burt Reynolds. I mean, it's like, okay, this is a cool guy,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah, and it was how can I put it? He was a nice guy. I mean, Burt Reynolds was like a nice guy, but he was like a hillbilly version of Jack Nicholson, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
where was he? He was born in Michigan. Okay, for some reason I thought that maybe he wasn't. But yeah, but at least it's not like he's like born in New York City. He claims that he was born in Georgia, but he's anyway. But yeah, he had that mentality, and what was the other thing I really liked about him? Oh yeah, I'm sure people of my generation remember him indirectly via Norm Macdonald's impersonation of Burt Reynolds on Saturday Night Live, which was like the most minimal effort you could do in an impersonation, but it kind of worked. He just basically, all he did was like play Burt Reynolds like in a black leather jacket, a red shirt, a mustache, and always chewing gum and saying, trying to say your sentences in as like few syllables as possible. That's how most of us probably remember Burt Reynolds if they've never seen his movie.
No, I'm looking at his personal life here on Wikipedia while we're talking, and at the end, things were not going well. He had money trouble. He got in trouble with Merrill Lynch, and they foreclosed on some property he owns and shit like that. That's not a happy thing. I mean, when you get to be elderly and your money making days are way behind you, if you didn't play your cards right insofar as the money you did earn at the time that you were earning money, old age, there's nothing more miserable than being worried about money when you're old. That's just the worst thing possible. And to our audience, I always tell them, plan for your money for the future, because when there's not going to be Social Security to take care of you. And Social Security is going to be a pittance by that time, because there is no such trust fund, and there's not enough workers to pay for the Social Security needs in the future. So you got to make it on your own. But anyway, about Burt Reynolds, how can I put it? I felt bad for him that he died, because he's always been a presence. Like, I grew up watching Smoking the Bandit movies and Cannonball Run movies, and and he had Dom DeLuise, who is like always the sidekick in these pictures. And I don't know who Dom DeLuise was, but he seemed to be everywhere. He was like the Paul Rubin. No, what's the name of the side? Adam Sandberg's Sanders' sidekick. That really annoying guy. Okay, it doesn't matter. How can I put this? I feel bad for the guy, but I'm not clear if he had any kind of real cultural significance. He was a very handsome guy. He was the first guy who ever posed nude in Cosmopolitan, which I thought was pretty witty. I thought it was funny. I thought it was like a pretty good goof, and because I think that he took it like that it was just a goof, just basically a troll. But I don't. How can I put this? Was he significant or not? I mean, the man's barely dead. His corpse is still warm, and we're trying to evaluate his significance. Do you think of him as significant?
He's sociologically very significant. He was, as a personal level, he's an interesting guy. He made a couple of pretty great movies, and frankly, that's a lot more than 99.9% of people are going to accomplish. I'd say he was significant.
Fair enough. Okay, but the other thing I want to talk about, the thing that really chapped my ass last week, was the New York Times op-ed. You know what I'm talking about. You want to fill in the audience about that? Oh God!
So it feels like ages ago because it only happened on like Wednesday, right, or something like that. So essentially, all of a sudden, the New York Times publishes an anonymous op-ed, which basically, in short, said, "I am a senior aide in the Trump administration. I do not like Mr. Trump. He's a doo-doo head, and he goes against core conservative values. So I and other like-minded people are intentionally undermining his policies in the executive, and we're doing it for the American people. You should feel grateful."
Yeah, and no, he also said some stuff along the lines of like, "Rest easy, we patriots are undermining this guy," and I thought to myself, they should convene a grand jury and subpoena the New York Times to give up the name of this guy, whoever he is, arrest him, and have him cough up the names of everybody else in his cabal and arrest those people too, and ship him to Leavenworth for 20 years because it's sedition. You cannot have a group of people in the White House self-consciously and deliberately undermining the goals and objectives of the duly elected president of the United States. This is sedition, okay? And you guys know, I mean, you listening and you, Benway, you know that I think that Trump is a fucking idiot, right? And I think that he's not, I think he's an idiot, and I think that he's just a very clever guy at improvising second to second and doing the best he can with whatever cards he has at that particular moment. But having said that, you cannot have a presidency where you have bureaucrats admitting that they are undermining his presidency, that they are countermanding his orders. You cannot. It's one thing, like there's like on Secular Talk, Kyle Kalinske was saying something along the lines of that Mattis at one point got some order because Trump had seen something and some TV show and said, "Oh, maybe it would be a good idea to go and bomb Syria." And Mattis was like, "Oh yeah," and he sort of just like ignored it basically. But it wasn't an order. It wasn't go and bomb Syria. It wasn't like a thought out thing. It was just some random talk. That I understand. That lots of times you'll just ignore the boss a little bit when the boss really doesn't mean it. He's just sort of like trying it out. Blue skying it to see if it sticks. Right? I'm mixing my metaphors, but you know what I mean. But this is the case where you have a senior administrative official, in the words of the New York Times, who is openly saying that for the good of the democracy, they are going to countermand the democratic will of the people. For the good of the democracy, they are going to carry out things that are tyrannical, policies based on closed groups of people who have no sort of accountability, no way of countermanding what they're doing. They're just going to do what they want and It's all for the good of the democracy. What the fuck is this? What are we talking about? This is insane. And for the New York Times to be pushing this, as far as I'm concerned, the New York Times is treasonous. Because this is the second they read this op-ed, they should have said, no, we're not going to fucking publish this. And if you oblige us to publish it, we're going to put your fucking name. Because this shit is sedition. That's what it is. I'm sorry. It makes me, you know why it gets me so hot on the collar? Because if everybody starts acting this way, that they can do whatever the fuck they want, irrespective of the democratic will of the people, then you are not going to have a functioning government for very long. You're going to have everybody just doing their own shit because they think that it's the right thing and they're preserving democracy. You have to have a fucking chain of command. You have to have a chain of command. That's why violating the chain of command in the military is one of the most egregious violations. Because if you don't have discipline in an organization like that, if you do not follow what the leader is telling you to do, okay, you have chaos. And and that's the thing that Obama is basically saying. Obama is saying that, it's not right to, what was the line the son of a bitch said? He said, we're supposed to stand up to bullies, not follow them. Okay, you think that Trump is a bully, fine. But what? So you're saying that we shouldn't follow Trump because he's a bully and we should do our own thing and do whatever the fuck we want? That's fucking sedition. That's treason. That's... Okay, sorry, I'm losing my cool. But do you understand why I'm losing my cool? Because I think it's just, inches from civil war.
Well, it dovetails into our discussion, which I don't think we've posted yet, on the conspiracy theory kind of point of view of the world.
Yeah.
And essentially what we will say, or when you eventually get to hear it, is that, hey, look, a lot of this is to a certain extent class-based. We can make our decisions independent of any kind of process around managing our decisions. And this is an extension of that. And yes, of course, they should be held accountable, but they don't, and they don't really care. And very few people care. And that is the nature of the business. But so I would just kind of turn it around and say, well, Trump, look at it this way. Your fears were confirmed. There are some assholes around you. If you can find them out, yeah, make an example of them. But let's do something even better. He's trying to undermine you so bad. Why don't you double down on one of your big fucking policies that we've all been waiting for? Build the wall and do it without congressional approval or authority. And funny thing is, this also happened just this week where Ann Coulter showed up on Tucker Carlson's show. More or less said, hey, you know what, Trump, most of the federal budget goes into the Department of Defense and the Homeland Security. Most of the money is there. They have the engineering skills to build said wall. Treat this like an invasion, and this is part of a military exercise and expenditure. You don't need to talk to Congress at that point.
Yeah.
And now exploring that idea. So I think if he pulls that off, and you can tie it to, through a somewhat logical chain of events, right? To, to get that, to get to say like, hey, because some asshole said he's trying to undermine me, well, fuck you. I'll do my big stuff and I don't give a shit what anybody says. That would be great. It would just prove that, because I think David Frum had this opinion, a guy I hate, but he basically said, look, this is the worst possible thing this quote unquote underminer could do, because rather than be public and saying I'm not going along with this, others should voice that opinion too in the administration. He's playing this, cowardly game, confirms Trump's fears, and puts him in a position where, yeah, he's not going to trust anybody.
Yeah, I mean,
because he has no reason to.
Yeah, I was glad to see that a lot of people on the left were just as outraged as I was at this. Well, Glenn Greenwald, he was as outraged as I was for more or less the same reasons. But other people were like outraged because this anonymous writer didn't have the balls to quit and to put their names on it, which I also agree. I agree with. I think that it was cowardly. I mean, it blew back in their face, in the New York Times face and the author of this piece. I don't think that people really. This person did not come off well. I think that they wanted to come across as like deep throat, but they came across as just cowardly and just kind of pathetic. You know what I mean? And also kind of like LARPy. There was a sense that that they thought that they were much more powerful than they actually were, and also they used that word lodestar that Mike Pence has used on a number of occasions. No fucking way did Mike Pence write this fucking thing. I mean, no way, because he's way too clever for that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, I think some people were saying, look, the language that's being used, they compared it against the language that H.R. McMaster would use,
Yeah.
and it's very similar. I actually believe it could easily be someone like in H.R. McMaster's entourage,
Yeah,
as it were. And I actually don't know where H.R. McMaster is these days.
I think it's going to be, some kids on 4chan or something are going to, or 8chan are going to figure out who's who and what's what, and they're going to do voice analysis and all kinds of crazy tech ass shit, and they'll figure it out pretty quickly. My sense is that whoever it was, that person has to be arrested. I'm not kidding around. This isn't a free speech issue. This is sedition. This is a statement of open sedition. This is basically a statement of a fifth columnist. Doesn't matter what their agenda is or their motivation to protect the democracy or some shit like this. This is a fifth columnist. That's what we're talking about. This is treason, and I cannot believe that so many people took it so casually, and others celebrated it. Well, the people who are celebrating it, they're the people we got to put up against the wall when the revolution comes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, those people are just not our kind of people, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm being inarticulate and just spinning my wheels on this issue because I feel just viscerally that this was a catastrophe. This was like the worst possible thing. And you're right. I mean, if I were Trump, I would want to know who was this guy. I would want his head on a pike as quickly as possible, if only as an example, because you cannot run an organization and have people, tossing around these kinds of op-eds on the pages of the New York fucking Times and get away with it, because it sets a bad example to everybody else, and your authority is undermined, severely undermined internally among your staff, your people. I don't think it was any of Trump's family members. I don't think it was Pence or his chief of staff.
So according to CNN, they have an article on it. So take it with a grain of salt. It is CNN.
Yeah.
They
Criminal
say White House says it's closing in. Trump aides said they have narrowed the search for the New York Times op-ed to author to a few people. Apparently, Trump believes the op-ed writer is in national security. Conway says.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Kellyanne Conway.
Well, all of this points to the final issue that we should discuss, and here I want to turn it into what the deep state has been up to, basically, is this this newest op-ed by Hank Paulson, Tim Geithner, and Ben Bernanke, which I have not, because of time difference, I have not had a chance to read, but you clued me in about this, so why don't you fill us our audience about this?
Oh, yeah. No, I had to pull up the choicey quotes. But, yeah, so invariably an op-ed from any one of the former Treasury secretaries or a former Federal Reserve chairman is immediately suspect just by virtue of how these things fucking operate. But when all three of them, Tim Geithner, Ben Bernanke, and Paulson, get together to write something, fucking shit's going up the creek. Something bad is going to happen. When you look at the op-ed, essentially what it says was, hey, we need to be able to and ready to fight the next financial crisis. They're like, okay, I guess that's logical. What do you mean? But what they're saying is Congress has taken away some of the tools that were crucial to us during the 2008 panic. It's time to bring them back. Now, think about this. What were the tools they deployed to, quote unquote, stave off that financial crisis? If you were living at the time and during that time and you lost your job and you faced the tough times that a lot of people faced, you didn't, stem the crisis by any fucking measure. You still lived it. But what are they talking about? Well, they're talking about the free money, essentially, that was given to the banks, the ability that basically said, we'll guarantee these things. It's okay. But here, I'll read a quote from it. But in its post-crisis reforms, Congress also took away some of the most powerful tools used by the FDIC, the Fed, and the Treasury. Among these changes, the FDIC can no longer issue blanket guarantees of bank debt, as it did in the crisis. The Fed's emergency lending powers have been constrained, and the Treasury would not be able to repeat its guarantee of the money market funds. These powers were critical in stopping the 2008 panic. From a political perspective, Congress's decision to limit these crisis-fighting tools was predictable. Many of the actions necessary to stem the crisis, including the provisions of loans and capital to financial institutions, were controversial and unpopular. To us, as to the public, the responses often seemed unjust, helping some of the very people and firms who had caused the damage. Those reactions are completely understandable, particularly since the economic pain from the panic was devastating for many. The paradox of any financial crisis is that the policies necessary to stop it are always politically unpopular. But if that unpopularity delays or prevents a strong response, the cost to the economy will become greater. We need to make sure the future generations of financial firefighters, what a fucking piece of shit image, have the emergency powers they need to prevent the next fire from becoming a conflagration. We must also resist calls to eliminate safeguards as the memory of the crisis fades. For those working to keep our financial system resilient, the enemy is forgetting. Now the language in that fucking language of that thing is fucking disgusting.
Well, forget about but here's the thing I want to focus on here. See, at the beginning, these are the last three paragraphs of this op-ed, and to start at that first of those three paragraphs, it's in its post-crisis reforms, Congress also took away some of the most powerful tools used by the FDIC, the Fed, and the Treasury. Among these changes, the FDIC can no longer issue blanket guarantees of bank debt, as it did in the crash. The Fed's emergency lending powers have been constrained, and the Treasury would not be able to repeat its guarantee of the money market funds. Now, those three policies essentially meant that all of the losses of the 2008 financial crisis were socialized. The government would take up the losses. That's what those three policies meant. That's why those three policies were constrained or altered or prohibited by Congress, because people were sick and tired of the fact that the winnings of the joyride were privatized, but the losses were socialized, i.e., taxpayers paid for it, or the payment, the problem was turned into federal government debt that we taxpayers would all pay for it in the end. And it's understandable, yeah. Like these fuckers say here, it's understandable, but blah blah blah. But we need the tools for the financial fire.
But we have emergency powers that usurped your democratic rights. It's funny you mentioned we had just talked about the fucking op-ed from the anonymous source saying he has the power to undermine the president's decision. Let's also remember what Hank fucking Paulson did in 2008 when the first vote to approve TARP or not to approve TARP went through. It lost. Right. Everybody said, no, these assholes caused this mess. They can bear the burden. And Paulson went around and said, idiots, this is not what's acceptable. I'm ignoring the vote. You go and vote again until you vote right.
Yeah,
they basically pulled an EU.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same thing. Paulson should have been hung as a traitor on that, for that little stunt he did. And I keep reminding everybody that nobody from the financial banks who were in charge of their banks ever really got fired. No one went to prison. No. Everybody got off scot-free. Yeah. They all kept their fucking money.
They all
Lloyd Blankfein just fucking retired this past year. The little scumbag shithead bald man, who made a fair amount of money. Hank Paulson. I don't know if it was Hank's handpicked successor.
It was,
but he came. He was. Yeah. Came fucking close. Of course he was.
Yeah.
All of these guys should have been hung on the gallows under the old circumstances, and they never were. Emergency powers simply means that these guys are getting ready to say, "Hey, if my friends are ever in trouble, they won't lose their billions." You might find it unpopular, but it's better for all of you. In other words, I want you to bend over, spread your ass cheeks, and get ready to take it a little bit deeper next time.
Yeah.
Because they are prepared. When they say, once we're fighting for the next financial crisis, they're waiting for it. They're ready because they know that their buddies can still make a lot of money in a big bad bear. in a depression. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, and here's something else. The fact that these three shitheads are co-signing this op-ed, again, on the New York fucking Times, okay, that's a clear fucking signal. That's basically saying that either a financial crisis is on its way or it will be manufactured somehow. Okay? That's what it's basically saying. And it seems to me that it's just a pincer move in this whole issue of the deep state trying to take out Trump. I think that they are fucking terrible. Look, all of this stuff, the op-ed, the two op-eds now, the anonymous op-ed and of Sedition, and now this Geithner, Paulson, Bernanke op-ed, I think it signals two things. Number one, the deep state is really going for broke. And number two, you only go for broke if you think you're going to lose. And I think that what these guys are starting to realize, I think the more sophisticated ones are realizing that Trump is not going to lose in 2018. He's going to win big. I mean, he's going to win big. And I think that they're fucking realizing it. I think that they're reading the tea leaves correctly. And that's why they're doubling down and just having a complete and massive freak out. And I think that a lot of deep staters are angry that there's no real clear leadership on the Democratic Party. There's no standard bearer. There's no figure that can take up the mantle and be the quote unquote resistance, the leader of the resistance against Trump. They don't have their Charles de Gaulle, if you want to put it in those terms, and they're panicking. I think that this is part of a panicking thing. I am not confident, okay, because people who panic often can be very effective. Because if it weren't effective on lots of occasions, people would not panic. It would have been, it would have evolved out of, human beings and all living things, right? Panic works. When you thrash around in desperation, when the chips are down, sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes you survive. Lots of times you survive. And I think that is what the deep state is trying to do. They're panicking and they're thrashing around and throwing everything, and potentially they could win. They could somehow hobble Trump. The only good thing going for Trump at this point, frankly, is that it's not a head-to-head race. It's just a bunch of races, a bunch of individual races that depend on momentum as opposed to any kind of central figure. Because like I said, the Democrats, the left, the resistance, quote unquote, they don't have a central figure to rally around. And that for Trump is actually a good thing, because he can go and put up his rallies in all these borderline, these tight races, and push his guy over the finish line. And so we'll see if this happens. But I think I think this election is going to be one of the most important elections ever. I think that this is really going to be the turning point.
I think if Trump manages to pull a September or October surprise and does what Ann Coulter suggested and just make it a military project to build the wall, he'll be fucking invincible. Honestly, because at that point he'll say, like, look, I took all the powers of the presidency against God and everybody who wanted to see me fail, and I pulled it off. And fuck the Congress, fuck everybody. They'll love him for it.
It could be. What do you think? Do you think that he'll be able to pull it off come November?
I would like to see him pull it off. I mean, I don't see what can stop him to a certain extent. I mean, there will always be some fucking judge who is trying to undermine it, but it will be entertaining to not say the least, because I know the fucking Republican leadership have already punted on it. They're now saying, oh, it doesn't seem appropriate to do anything about it until after the midterm election. In other words, I think it's better if we lose. Or, I couldn't hold the responsibility of making an actually difficult decision. That's scary to a politician and everything. Give me a fucking break.
No, if he gets like a Trump Congress, a Congress that's really behind him, oh man, yeah, he's bulletproof, and that's when we're going to see the real fucking freak out, because, oh man, how can I put this? This week has been momentous, and of course, the first week after Labor Day. Traditionally, the period after Labor Day is when the political race really starts, right? And so we've got 60 days until the midterm election. I think that this is not the first week. I don't think this is an unusual week. I think this is the start, the first of the weeks of this campaign, of the, 9 weeks that this is going to last. I think it's going to be a fucking nightmare. I think every week is going to be like this, where all kinds of shit is going to be thrown in every direction. And clearly, the deep state has thrown the first salvos. Man, it was a wild fucking week.
Oh, yeah, they show that they all know the stakes, right? Mm-hmm. They know that it's not it doesn't look perfectly good for them again, but it'll be entertaining. That's all I can say. I'm here to be entertained.
Well,
because that's the point of the news night.
Yeah, well, now it certainly is. But no, I do have to say that the entertainment value has gone through the roof, but the hysteria. Okay, look. When Xena Bosch, right, got this shit thrown at her about being a white supremacist because of how she put her hand, at first I thought they were kidding. I thought that it was just a goof, a LARP, a parody of leftist reaction. And then when it turned out to be like, no, it was like for real. They really thought that, okay, that they were really pushing that. I thought it was fucking insane. I mean, these people are off their rocker. And here's something else that I'm thinking more and more of. This situation with Trump, this is the same thing that happened during Nixon. And I'm becoming more and more sympathetic to Nixon, because what he was actually achieving in the 4 years of his presidency, or the first 4 years of his presidency, up to Watergate, right? He was doing his job really fucking well. He was pulling out of Vietnam. He was fixing the economy as best he could because of the disasters of the Johnson administration and the Great Society programs, which were bankrupting the country and creating the inflation that was, wrecking the American economy. He was doing the best he could, and he was doing it really well in spite of all these establishment, deep state press people flinging shit. And now we're seeing it again, 40 odd, almost 50 years later. They are in cahoots once again. Well, they were always in cahoots. And this period for me is making me open my eyes to the fact that Dwight Eisenhower was so right when he said that, the military-industrial complex, it's them, it's the entrenched bureaucrats, and it's the press people, all of whom want to hold on to their privileges. And they are, they are the leeches, they are the vampire squid on American society. They are just leeching off. And whenever anybody comes along and tries to peel them off, they lash out with everything they've got. And we're seeing it now. I'm ranting, but
of course, any kind of creature that needs its sustenance gets pissed off if you try to pull it off, which is why the best way to deal with the leech is to take a cigarette or fire and burn it off. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
But we have to end on a somewhat positive note, because I hate all the times we leave people even more black-pilled. So I'll say this funny story for the end. Talking about leeches. Mm-hmm. Michael Cohen apparently wants his $130,000 back from Stormy Daniels. Bitch, give me my money.
Yeah, so he paid her off, and now he wants the money back, right? Oh, man. Michael Cohen, that whole... So fucking sleazy. So fucking...
Oh, it's so funny. I mean, but yeah, of course it's sleazy.
Yeah, here's something interesting. Brett Kavanaugh, the guy's squeaky clean. He's squeaky clean, and he lives this very calm life. They're digging up random emails he wrote 15 fucking years ago about casual shit, and they're like, somebody wrote him an email, and he answered back, "Call me." And they're like thinking, oh, in that message, he declared his allegiance to the Grand Wizards of the KKK or some shit like that. I mean, they are reaching for straws. But, basically Kavanaugh just led this placid, calm, good life and always did the right thing. And he's clearly a very principled man. And look at him now. He's sitting there, going through this shit, through this circus, which is embarrassing. But frankly, we all know he's going to be sitting on the Supreme Court. And, and also I think that his family and his daughters and his wife and his parents who are there, they know that this is just political circus, because nothing that they throw at him is going to stick, because he didn't do anything. He lived a completely moral life, right?
I think even his family had to be escorted out for safety
oh,
reasons.
that's just
Because that was the other event that happened. Remember, I think one of the fathers of the Parkland, I think it was the Parkland shooting. I don't know. One of the shootings, who's very much in
Tried
the
to ambush him.
Democratic camp. Tried to ambush him. It's basically, so you're Brett Kavanaugh. You don't know this guy from Shinola. A guy runs up to you and starts touching you. What the fuck is your response going to be? And there's even video. This basically, I don't know if there's Secret Service or if there's some sort of security detail. It basically says, "Okay, we go now," kind of thing. And the Parkland guy goes on MSNBC or CNN and says, "Brett Kavanaugh wouldn't even acknowledge me. Didn't even think I was worth his time." And people were like, "Oh yeah, if only there was video evidence to confirm or deny what you're saying." Oh yes, there is.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're full of shit.
Yeah,
per usual.
Yeah.
Oh. More good legal fun news, more happy pills. This whole, Mueller investigation, 2 years, God knows how many millions of dollars. George Papadopoulos, we're going to, try to sentence him and, in
2 weeks.
In court. And he's going to get, the judge took a look at Mueller's investigation, said basically, yeah, you're basically full of shit here. I'll give him 2 weeks in prison.
Yeah. And it was like a
jail, not even fucking prison.
Yeah. 2 weeks in jail, which, I didn't know the difference until Ethan Ralph showed up and told us. And jail is, it's easier,
And he's got to pay like less than 10 grand in fines.
Wasn't it like $2,500 or something like that? I mean, like something.
I'm seeing 9,500, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It's
$9,500. Yeah, it's less than a used car. Okay, fine. You can sell off the old Chevette and scrounge up the money to pay for that. It was all bullshit. Okay, that kind of like light sentencing. Just, they found him on something. Sure, if somebody's life is scrutinized hard enough, they will find something on you, no matter what.
It was a process crime. I'm pretty sure that's what they convicted him on.
I think it was absurd. But anyway, look. At the end of the day, Mueller's investigation is revealing butkus, right? Lanny Davis is walking back everything he said, because nothing's going on here. Now we have to see how Trump handles this shit. Okay, because ultimately, I think that next week we will have a better picture of how he reacts, how he responds to all of the provocations of this first week, and if there are more provocations. I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. But okay, so on that note, we're going to end the podcast, and so this has been the Weekly Bile episode of the Coach and Benway podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Coach Red Pill signing off. Dr. Benway, as always, will leave us with a final word. A happy word that will leave us with a smile on our face. And that happy word is...
I don't know if it's a word, but as soon as I remember when I saw that George Papadopoulos got the 2 weeks in jail, I was like reminded of Total Recall when Arnold Schwarzenegger has that woman robot face on. Is it, how long are you going to be staying? 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's a bomb. That's the image of this week. Is it 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. So on that cheerful note, we will catch you next time. Take it easy.